Hey guys, it's Lauren here from Love Her Wild Photography. I've had a request in the Facebook group to showcase a video on editing darker skin tones. So I've compiled a little list here, a little couple of photos of some of mine out of my Lightroom catalogue of darker skin tones. And I'm just going to show you the little tricks and bits and pieces that I would do. Okay, so first up we have this one of Bella. Now I'm going to apply Golden Days 5 to this, and immediately the first thing I'm going to do, instead of trying to reduce any saturation in tones and things like that, I can see that there's a little bit of a yellowish greenish cast on her skin. So I'm just going to go straight over to hue, select this little guy, and that way it'll tell me which ones are affected. So I'll just drag it over this way, and as you can see, it's changing the colors that are picking up over here, and I like it a little bit away from the yellowy greens, and I might even just bring the yellow over just a touch. Now it looks quite pink, but that's okay. Then I will come back to the saturation and I'll just remove the saturation of orange just a tiny touch, and I might up the luminance just to expose that color just a little. Now I think that the really important thing in all of this is to remember that it's so easy to, when you have a darker skin tone, to just up the exposure and that'll fix it, but then you're kind of doing a dishonor to the actual tone itself, and it's not really true to their skin tone. So a few different things I would do is drop the highlights a touch, and that way it's not blasting their skin with exposure, you know, and drop the whites. And if I wanted to up this photo around her and accentuate the details, there's two things I could do. I could go to enable profile corrections, or I could get the radial filter and I would just dodge the shadows a little bit, but I would, hang on, let me just remove that. And I would make sure that this isn't ticked for invert, and I would just lift the shadows and everything around her just a touch. So where are we? So that's it before. Where are we? Let's go here. There. And it's just enough to lift the photo a little bit without affecting her skin tone. So let's go over here again. Now, what I found in shooting in golden hour is it's such warm sun that it's very easy with a darker skin to get super orange skin. So let's see how the presets work on this. Now I shot it, I cooled it right down because I was like, whoa, it is blasting warmth, and normally I shoot super warm. So that's something to consider when you're shooting darker skin tones as well. So let's go, I'm going to go maybe full sun on this one, full sun preset, and automatically it's warmed it back up for me, so I'm actually going to cool it right back down again. And then I'll just up the exposure a touch. And again, I might play just with the hues a little bit. If I really wanted to. And I feel like that is great. That honors her, her natural skin tone. Let's have a look. So that's it there. And that's it there. If it looks a little bit pink, maybe I could just bring down the pinks a touch. But I'm happy with that. Okay. So now this isn't a super dark skin tone, but it is, the girls had a really nice, beautiful olive skin tone. So I shot this at, and again, I normally shoot super warm, but with a darker skin tone, I do tend to cool it down a little. Let's see. I'm going to go Golden Days 2 on here. And what I'll do is just to lift the heavy contrast in this area here, I'll just lift the shadows a touch. But I'll make sure it's inverted. And that way I'm really focusing on what's going on in the photo as well. I don't really feel like it's affecting them too much. I do feel like it's making the whites of her face quite white. So what I could do is bring down the luminance of orange just a little, and maybe even the highlights just a touch, just because we don't want to blow out her face to be something that it's not. Okay, so this in-home session, this is a really good example of when there's a few different skin tones in the one session, because it can be a little tricky on who you should be exposing for and things like that. My trick and what I do is I exposed for mum's skin, and that way I knew that I could bring up dad in the shadows later on. So let's have a look. I'm gonna do Golden Days 4 on this one. I'm just gonna remove some of the contrast, and then what I'll do is, let's see, dodge shadows. Just gonna bring it down a little. I'm just going to bring up some of the detail, like on her face and the baby's face and things like that. And then what I'll do is actually get the graduated filter, and I'm going to bring that over from dad. And I'm actually going to lift the blacks a touch. Again, it's a really fine balance between editing it true to how somebody looks versus just trying to get a photo where you can see all the details. So this dad had quite dark skin, and I'm not going to pretend that it wasn't by, you know, blasting the exposure just to get like a really detailed shot, because that's just not how it was. That's just what he looked like, and it was beautiful. So I feel like that's perfect for me. I might reduce the contrast just a touch, and you can see all of the beautiful details of his skin. You can see the beautiful details of the mama and the baby, and they're still, you know, it's all still true to who they are. Okay, so these guys, well, she's quite tanned. He had darker skin. I just want to show you how I'll do this on this photo. So I'm going to show you right now. When I see his skin here and I go to apply the preset, let's see. I'm going to go 2 again. It automatically exposes him a lot. So I'm going to drop the exposure, and I might up the contrast. And then again, you can go back to reset, and you can see already that the highlights in the preset are kind of overexposing his skin. So you could just brush on, burn the highlights just a touch. There's a few different alternatives. Just very, you know, don't be too heavy-handed on it. And you could bring it back to how it is, or you can bring it down and you can fix his skin on this side and make the photo where you want it to. And if you get it right for his skin, often then it would make the other person quite white, for example, or too dark. So the opposite of what you can do then is just like brush on, let's see, for her, I'm going to brush some warmth back onto her. I'm just going to drop the highlights just a touch so that it just doesn't throw her off too much as well. And then we're sort of balancing back out again. And I'll just bring the exposure up a touch. All right, let's have a look. That's reset, and that's now. Okay. Well, that's them again. I'm just gonna apply Golden Days 3. And I'll just up the exposure a touch. And again, I will go back to reset and I will look at their skin and make sure that I'm not making him look lighter than he is, or not making her look darker than she is, and I think that's pretty ace. Okay, so this one's for Asian skin. This beautiful, beautiful couple I photographed. Now, you can see here that I have shot it at 8,000 because we'd gone into sort of blue hour and we were in the shadows. So I upped my temperature to really, really warm. if I had shot it where I normally do with my Kelvin, it would have looked like this. But I had it at, yeah, 8,000, around 8,000. So I'll just do Golden Days 1. And I'm just going to drop the highlights just a touch. Now, one of the things that I find with darker skin, and if you have someone on the outer skirts of a photo, they can very easily go super, super dark and you lose a lot of the detail and it's quite contrasty. So my trick for that is to use enable profile corrections. And that way it's just bringing up the little details of him without you having to brush it on and it looks strange. That's all I would do to that photo. I'll just show you before and after. Okay, so this one here is Beautiful Ange, and again, I wanted to show you how I would edit a photo with very contrasting skin. Let's see. I'm just going to see which one I want to put on this. I might go Golden Days 1, so it brings out the rich greens. Now, as you can see, excuse me, it's alright for Otis's skin, but Angie's is kind of, we've lost all detail there, so I'm just going to drop down these highlights a touch. And then what I would do here on hers is actually just use the radial filter and go dodge shadows. You can zoom in, and we'll just go in, invert. Now we just need to be careful that it doesn't go on her son's face, but it's enough to honor who she is and also to just bring back those details just a touch. Now you could do this with the brush as well. What I would do as well is the preset does seem to make her skin quite warm, but I don't want to change how it's affecting his skin. So I would just cool down in here inside the radial filter. I'll just cool it down just a little instead of it being too orange. And then if I really wanted to, I could just reduce the orange just a touch in this. Cool. And then this one again. Let's see. I'm just going to up the exposure and apply Golden Days 4. And I feel like that's just fine. The way it is, her skin is exposed. I feel like it's quite contrasty. I might just lift the blacks just a little or reduce the contrast. And that is it, really. You can see all of the details there. And so I'll just show you before and after. Thanks, guys. If you have any questions, join the Facebook group. I'll put the link below. And yeah, happy editing.